Hi, my name is Lupe Delatorre, and this is what the Lord has done for me. Growing up with my parents was not easy, was not good. There was a lot of physical abuse and mental, especially for my mom, especially for me. So it wasn't a good childhood. We did not have any family devotions. We weren't very religious, but they did keep the tradition of the First Communion baptism for the Catholics, which to me wasn't really interesting. I always just looked back at it and was very intrigued by it, but never cared for it. I do have 3 siblings, 2 brothers and 1 sister. They were older than me, so it felt like I was the only child, so didn't really have a lot in common with them. Everybody just grew up and left the house as quick as they could. I don't blame them. I don't really have examples of my childhood that I would look back and give it to God. To me, it was more of surviving, survive mode mentally. I would always have to figure out what to eat because of the way growing up, my mom, the way she had to be very devoted to my father. I would have to just always be on survive mode. So whether it would be eating, if I would get a good sleep, I would sometimes pray to God, but I guess I stopped believing in Him because my prayers wouldn't be answered. So I never really looked up to God for help because I just gave up on Him. So instead, I just went to the dark side. So growing up, as soon as I turned 18, I found a way to leave home. And once I did, I had to grow up quick and fast. So I had to look for a job. I got my own truck, my own car, my own apartment. And from there, I found a good steady job. That's how I met a friend that helped me meet my husband. And, we got together. And still didn't look for the Lord, didn't, recognize Him, didn't just live my own day-to-day life, working, taking care of my daughter, and just basically moved around a lot, moved around between cities and towns, trying to find a good area for my daughter, because I was more devoted for my daughter, trying to take care of her because based of how I had to grow up. So I could say God blessed me with wisdom, a little bit of wisdom because of my survival mode. But yeah, that's how I was at my young times. And then I started partying a little bit with a friend. And once I got with my husband, then all that partying went away. And we moved to Fort Worth near downtown. And then that's how I found the Lord. I don't know if I could call myself an outgoing person. I was very stand backish. I would be more observant. I would be friendly. I was very humble because of, what I went through. But I think I was intimidating to some people, I guess, because they always said I had this face of don't come at me, don't talk to me, don't look at me. But I wasn't a bad person. I was outgoing once I had a relationship with someone, like a friend. I was very outgoing, but I'm very more on the shy side. I tried to be more outgoing, but I was the only child, so. As growing up, once I had the freedom, I left home, I got involved with a lot of street friends, a lot of guys. I was more of a guy friend because girls never clicked with me. So I was always hanging out with more of homeboys. We would do drive-bys, and not shooting drive-bys, just drive-bys, and they would have their own issues, but I would just be, like a company for them. You could say they could have been almost like a second family. They taught me a lot. Then I started getting into drugs. I did a lot of weed, which is the only way that I became social, odd enough. But I think that's the only thing that I did that was bad, was just smoke weed and I did go to a couple of clubs. I mean, I was 18, so, you know, I wanted to see what was out there. I wanted to get away from the life that I grew up in. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I would just go to work, party, smoke, come home, take care of my daughter. Same old repeat. So one day I was at home. I was scrolling through the internet when YouTube was finally out. And I happened to stumble upon a video. It was called A Wake Up Call. I don't know what made me want to press on it because I don't really look at videos like that, but something was telling me, something was urging me to watch that video. Upon watching it, it's what I call God woke me up. God gave me a nice slap, wake up, you know? And there were some really interesting things in that video. It talked a lot about conspiracies, which lo and behold, it's now true today. People thought it would never come true or it wasn't true, but they are now officially true. Talked a lot about behind the doors of the government, about vaccines, about food, about the evil spirits behind the government, all that crazy stuff. So I watched it and I was like in shock. And I was like, whoa, it really broke my spirit because I was not aware of this. I was like what you call a sheep. I was asleep, you know? And oh my gosh, I called my husband as soon as I was done watching that video, crying, you know, bawling my eyes out, telling him, they're trying to kill us, they hate it. It was funny. He was just like in shock, like, what is wrong with her? But I called him bawling, saying, you know, telling him everything that I watched, what was going on behind the closed doors. And then I think he even got out early because, you know, I was just so hysterical. And once I got off the phone with him, you know, I started crying to God. That was the first time I ever reached out to God. I started crying to him. I went to the room. I cried and cried and cried. I really didn't know what to say, but I was just, you know, saying, forgive me, Lord, forgive me. You know, I felt horrible too. I don't know why, but I just felt very horrible as a person. And I hated myself so much. And I was saying, Lord, forgive me, you know, and I hated myself so much that I was hitting myself. I just don't know why. I can't explain what the feelings were going through in my mind at that time. But, you know, I finally calmed down. I felt peace. I felt assurance. And then he came home and I had him watch the video and he was in shock. Now, I don't know if he fully grasped the meaning of what he watched, but he was in shock. And I told him, you know, I think we need to, you know, go back to God. We need to reach out to God. We need to get our lives straight and, you know, have communion with him. And he agreed. So, you know, I don't think he was fully committed yet, but I know I was, because I was just a broken spirit. I was just in shock and awe of everything that I just saw and what's going on, and plus of today, with what's going on with today. So I know I committed myself to him, and I told him, you know, we need to find a church, and I want to start reading the Bible. I've never read the Bible except for communion, and I still never even understood it. But I went to the dollar store, I bought a Bible, and I tried to read it. And I couldn't pass the first chapter, the first paragraph. I had no understanding of what I was reading. But I didn't give up, and I continued every day trying to read. And then I started praying, you know, God, please help me understand what your word is, you know. And lo and behold, it took 7 days for me to finally pass the first chapter, which is of Genesis, to understand what God was saying, which now looking back, I know what the meaning 7 means, but it took 7 days for me to understand or to even read the Bible. So after that, my husband finally committed to trying to read the Bible. And as he was trying, and I felt like I was fully devoted, I had some nightmares, which is crazy. 3 days, the same nightmare back to back. And I told my husband, like, I don't know why I'm having these nightmares. And it's crazy. It was a nightmare of me following a person into a restroom. For some reason, the person seemed off, and I was like, are you okay? And this person turned around, became a demon. And when he became that demon, I started saying, you know, the blood of Christ has washed me and stuff like that, like almost doing an exorcism to that demon. And it happened for 3 nights. And after that third night, And I haven't had a nightmare after that. It was like such peace came to me after the third night. And I was like, that's so weird. And lo and behold, my husband had the same dream a week after. And exactly the same dream. To me, that was a sign that we finally committed ourselves to God and we proved the devil that we weren't afraid, that we overcame our fear, and that he was no longer part of our lives. And we had such peace. And then after that, that's when I found out about the Antichrist, because we were going to a church. We didn't know what church. We were looking for a church. We found out about the Antichrist. And when I learned about the Antichrist, I learned about the 10 Commandments. And from the 10 Commandments, I found out that the Antichrist changed the law, God's worship law. And from there, we found a church that worshiped on the Sabbath day. And then from there, we started, going to that church. Because previously, when we were going to another church, we were like, they're not teaching what we know, They're just teaching about love and forgiveness. And we're like, we get that, but why aren't these pastors waking up these people about what's going on? So when we found that church in Fort Worth, we were just shocked. We both looked at each other and we were like, wow, this is our church. Because based on what we knew and what the pastor was teaching, we were shocked that he was talking about it. We're like, this is our church. As I was reading the Bible, as God finally opened my eyes and let me understand his word, God taught me everything. God taught me about dress reformation. He taught me about the diet. And nobody came to me, it was all God's Spirit, the Holy Spirit guiding me, because I was very intrigued with everything I was reading. So I read from the beginning to the end with a couple of months. And what people would call me would say I was a kindergarten, I went from kindergarten to graduate based on how everything I learned on my own. But it's all in God's word. So whenever he was talking about the food, the diet in Genesis, I started to eat healthier. I wasn't fully vegetarian yet, but I understood that in the beginning it was just herbs and fruit. So I transitioned my diet. My husband wasn't quite there yet. And from my diet, as more as I studied the Bible, I learned about the dress reformation. And the more I continued deeper into the Bible, I learned about jewelry. And then the deeper I went in, that's when I started studying about Revelation, which of course I didn't know much of the symbols or the meanings of it, but I understood who the Antichrist was. I understood his goal. I understood God's goal. And so from there, I transitioned from vegetarian to vegan, and I went from raw vegan, which was a complete blessing because raw vegan eliminated a lot of problems like allergies, skin problems. And now not most people could do it, but it was a blessing indeed. And nobody came to me. So God really can show you and teach you without having a person. But you have to be willing to open your heart and be willing to be acceptful to what he teaches you. And ever since then, I've never went back to, never even thought about doing the bad things like smoking or eating meat or, because it's such a blessing when you transition your diet. And God says also to keep keep the temple holy. And it's got both sides, because you're holy for God so that he can dwell in us and talk to us, and also you're healthy so you don't have to worry about the health side effects. So now, as I look back into everything that God has taught me, and now the things that I'm learning now about health and about his law and about, the things that he wants us to do, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to become more of a natural medical missionary. So I haven't been able to take classes, and I know there's a lot of classes and people that know how to teach these things, but I have taught myself as the past, like in the past. I've read a lot of books about herbs, remedies, about let thy food be thy medicine be thy food. And I continue to study that because to me it's been such a blessing to see how much disease and sickness that I have gone through be taken away because of natural medicine. So it's been about 10 years, no, about 11 years that I haven't been to the doctor. And any time that I have gotten sick, I have been able to cure it instantly, faster than what any other medication has been able to do. So for instance, if I had a cough, I can cure it within 3 days, compared to a week with antibiotics or cough or syrup, whatever they give out to the people. So I have been focusing more on that, on medicine and taking care of my body. I'm very well still into the fitness. I do exercises. I have studied for that, and I try to encourage as much as I can to many people, especially the elderly people, to exercise. Exercise has a big meaning for our bodies. It really does the body well. It builds up your bone density, and as well going with the health as well. And to me, it's just been a blessing. And if I had words of encouragement, would be, don't fall off the path. Continue to be faithful to God and trust in the Lord. You know, you can't go wrong with that. Everything is always better when you're with God versus than when you're with the devil. So my name is Lupe Delatorre, and this is what the Lord has done for me.